Finally, today's the big day. We actually start trigonometry. So trigonometry is really nice because it's brand new. It doesn't have too much relation to past knowledge. So for people that have struggled in math so far, this is like a final unit that you can do really well on, and this is really the last chance you have if you're wanting to affect your mark significantly. The easiest way to do it is ace a test. So let's make it this one. So again, starting from scratch. So when we're talking about the primary trig ratios, they're all related to the sides of a right triangle right now. So you need a reference angle, and if you look, all of them have indicated the reference angle here. It says discuss the hypotenuse and the opposite side and the adjacent side for the right triangles. So the indicated angle right here, they've indicated angle B because of this little arc here. Same with D. It's a double arc there. Or they can just say it, the reference angle is H. So we're going to go through and label this. So let's explain it first. I always label the hypotenuse first because it's the easiest side to find. You look for your right angle, and straight across is your hypotenuse. So this side will be your hypotenuse. And then the other two sides, I label them next. The next one I do is I look at my angle B. Which one is opposite angle B? You go straight across. This will be my opposite, so I label that one next. So I get OPP, we just label there. And then the last one, adjacent, which is just a fancy word for beside. So if I look, we're looking for the angle that is adjacent or beside B, so it has to be this one. That's why we labeled our hypotenuse first, because this one's also beside B, but this can't be the angle that is adjacent because it's already the hypotenuse. So again, we look at angle B. This one's already the hypotenuse, so the one that's beside angle B is BC right here, which we label adjacent. And again, that's just a fancy word for beside. So DJ we will write. If we look at the next one, our reference angle is D. So right now, why don't you pause it, try and label your hypotenuse first, then your opposite, and then your adjacent, and then you can compare it with mine in a second or two. So you try that right now, pause it, and hopefully you got it right. And now you can compare. So again, you label your hypotenuse first. That's straight across from my right angle. So if I look here, right across from my right angle, and then from my reference angle D, straight across is my opposite, and the one left over is beside it, which is adjacent. And let's move to the next one. So they've just stated that the reference angle is H. I always like to circle it, and then I know and I can see it right there. Go and label it again, hypotenuse, then adjacent, then opposite, and hopefully you can compare, and hopefully you're getting it right. So we have hypotenuse, and then we have opposite, and we have adjacent. And hopefully you got those right. Now, just so you know, when we get on with this unit, you will never have a reference angle that is the right angle. It's going to be one of the other two. So let's move down. We're going to actually get to our definitions. So moving down, we have our definitions, and we have three primary trig ratios. So they're going to be sine, cosine, and tangent. In terms of angle P, we've listed each of them. So in terms of angle P, we have our opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse side. These are the three primary trig ratios. We don't write the whole word. So if you look, we have sine. You guys say sin because that's what it looks like when you write the short form. Do not say sin, it's sine. This is cosine, don't call it cos. It's cosine. We write it in the short form. We say it, the full word, and we have our tangent or tan. So again, our ratios for sine, cosine, and tan, they are just the ratios of the sides corresponding to the indicated angle. So if we look at this, we have sine of angle P. So let's go and circle angle P right here. That is our reference angle. They've told us that. They stated it in the question right here, our reference angle P. So now go and label the sides on your triangle. So I've labeled the sides on my triangle. So from angle P, we have, first you do the hypotenuse, which is across from the right angle. Across from my angle P is the opposite, and beside it is my adjacent. And here are our trig ratios. Don't worry about the letters right here first. We want to concentrate on this. So if we look, sine of angle P, this is a definition that you have to memorize, is whatever the opposite side is over your hypotenuse. And then if we look here, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. Those are making reference to the sides in relation to angle P. So sine of angle P is whatever your opposite side is divided by your hypotenuse. It happens to be QR over PR. For cosine, it's adjacent over hypotenuse, and for tan, it is your opposite side over your adjacent side. So if we look, you have to memorize this. Some people use this acronym right here, SOHCAHTOA. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, tan is opposite over adjacent. And you just have to memorize them. Now we need to make sure that you can use your calculator properly. So if you scroll down, we're going to do our first example with your calculator. So it says use your calculator, using a calculator find the sine of 12 degrees. So this is all related to the angle 12 degrees. Now if you look at your calculator, there's different modes for it. You have degree mode, which you guys are used to degrees. You've talked about it before. That's 30 degrees, 40 degrees. There's two other modes that we don't use in grade 10. Gradient and radian mode. So if you look at your calculator, you want to have a little D for degrees, or you want to have a little DEG for degrees. If it's R or G for radians or gradients, you're in the wrong mode. So you either have a DRG button to switch modes, or you can hit mode and switch it from there. And I just need you to punch these numbers in on your calculator and make sure you get the same thing. So we want to do the sine of 12 degrees. So some calculators, you hit the sine button, and then you hit 12, 1, 2, and then hit equals, and you should get that ugly decimal right there. Other calculators, if that didn't work for you, clear it. Some calculators you have to hit 12 and then hit your sine button afterwards, and you should get that. If you're having problems with that, then you need to see your teacher tomorrow to make sure you can use your calculator. I need you to go and try all of these and see if they work for you. So give me 1 second. I just fixed a little error there. The next one that we're going to try is you're going to hit your calculator, or grab your calculator and hit cos 1, 2, and then hit enter, and you should get this number here. Or if your calculator's the other way, you're going to go 12 and then hit the cos button and get this number here. Hopefully all the rest of them work for you, so go and double check. I just double checked all my answers, and the rest of them are correct. So again, do the tan of 12, sine of 64, cos of 80, and tan of 30, and make sure you can get all of those. If you're having troubles, you can probably go and ask your parents or a brother or sister if they're in an older grade, or if no one's there tonight, you can just come in and ask your teacher right away tomorrow. Let's do our first example. So they say find angle A. So we're looking for angle A. So when you get to your picture, you go and circle angle A right away. From that, you go and label your sides. So first, we label our hypotenuse. And then we label our opposite. And then we label our adjacent. And we go, and then we look at our little memory aid. So we're going to be looking at SOHCAHTOA. Lots of people just write this at the top of their page when they're doing their test. So it's there for them, SOHCAHTOA. And if you look, they gave me information about the opposite and the hypotenuse. They did not give me any information about the adjacent. So you go to SOHCAHTOA and you're looking for the spot that has the opposite and the hypotenuse side by side, because those are the two that they gave me. So if you look, I've got OA side by side, I've got AH side by side. Oh, look, we have OH side by side. That's the pair that we wanted. So we're dealing with this portion of SOHCAHTOA. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse. That's what this piece of SOHCAHTOA says. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So let's write that out. So we write this out. So again, you should be listening right now, not copying this down. We have sine of the angle that they asked me for. That's my reference angle. I went and circled it. They gave me the opposite and hypotenuse, so I'm dealing with SO out of the SOHCAHTOA, which is opposite over hypotenuse. Fill in those values. We know that the opposite is 12 and the hypotenuse is 15. You can grab your calculator and punch that in on your calculator. So again, you're listening right now. Don't be copying this down until I'm done. You can copy it down at the end. We went and put 12 divided by 15 is 0.8. If it came out to be a lot of decimals, write them all down if you need to. You do need to. And then we need to get a by itself, so I take sine to the other side. So let's do that. Now again, you're used to moving things to the other side. If it was multiplied, it would switch to divide. If it was add, it would switch to subtract. Now we're taking sine to the other side, and when it goes to the other side, it ends up becoming sine, and it has a little -1 on it. And we don't say sine to the -1, it's actually sine, and this means inverse. So if you look at your calculator, we now have to type this in. So you're going to hit Shift on your calculator and then hit sine, and that's how you access the inverse sign. If you look above your sine key on your calculator, you'll see a little sign with the little -1, which means sine inverse. So you're going to hit Shift, sine, and then 0.8 and hit equals, or if your calculator's backwards, you're going to hit 0.8 and then you're going to hit Shift, sine, and then hit equals, and you're going to get your answer. And your answer is going to be 53 degrees. A few things. If it's not stated, you round angles to the nearest degree. So don't come up halfway through your test and say, how should I round it? If it's an angle, it's going to be to the nearest degree, unless the question says to do it a different way. If the question says to the nearest tenth, round it to the nearest tenth. But if it doesn't say so, go to the nearest degree. And don't forget, you have to put the degree sign. That's our units. And we're finished. So if we're looking at this, all this means is we have a way now to figure out what angle A is if it has an opposite side of 12 and a hypotenuse of 15. It's the sine is the ratio, or deals with the ratio of the opposite and a hypotenuse side, and there's a way for your calculator to figure out what that angle A would be. Let's move to the next question. So again, we're going to be doing these operations a lot, so you have to make sure you're comfortable with your calculator. So you need to fill in this chart and go through and do sine of 5 is making sure that you get this. Sine of 4 and making sure you get this. Sine of 3 and making sure you get this. Now make sure you actually do this, because you're going to come in tomorrow, and if you don't say, how do I do this on my calculator, we're going to assume that you typed everything in, it worked out perfectly, and you got the appropriate decimals. You need to follow up if you're struggling with this, or if you don't know how your calculator is working with this. We're going to be checking to make sure this chart is filled in tomorrow. If you didn't, it'll be like you didn't do your homework. So again, if we look here, we're trying the ones from 80 to 90, and you go sine of 80 degrees, you should get this. 82 degrees for sine, get this, and go all the way through. This one here is blank because when you do it on your calculator, if you do the tan of 90 degrees, you're probably getting an error or does not exist. So let's go and do another example. Scrolling down. So we'll do this one together, and then the next one, hopefully you'll pause it, try it on your own, see if you can get it, and then you'll see the solution once I'm done. So again, they say find angle C. So that's going to be my reference angle. So you go and you circle your reference angle C. Go and label opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. Again, start with the hypotenuse. Again, opposite would be over here, but they didn't give it to me and they didn't ask me for it, so it's probably not going to be important to me. And I've got adjacent here. Go and write out your acronym somewhere, so I'll write it at the bottom here, SOHCAHTOA. So we get SOHCAHTOA, and we're looking for the one that deals with the A and the H. So we're looking for the one where it's side by side. So if you look, we have it right here. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So I'm going to use the cosine trig ratio. So it's the cosine of my angle. And we finish it off. So if we look, we follow through. Cos of A was adjacent over hypotenuse. You put in the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. And if you don't want to go and punch this on your calculator, you can save yourself a step. Take the cos over to the other side and do cos inverse and just put this in brackets, 24 over 50. And then grab your calculator, go shift, then hit your cos, and then do 24 divided by 50. Or if your calculator's the other way, you'll probably go 24 divided by 50, hit equals, and then go shift cos, and then probably equals again. I want you to try and go and do the last one. Let's first find angle G. It says find the unknown angles. So it's actually up to you which one you want to find first. So you just have to pick one and it doesn't matter. So let's go and find G first. You try it and see what you get. Pause it and then you can compare. And hopefully you got the same as me. So if we look, we ended up doing the they didn't give me anything to do with the hypotenuse, so I was dealing with opposite and adjacent. And if you look at your SOHCAHTOA, which probably just popped up on your screen there, the O and the A are side by side, so that means I'm going to be using tan. Whichever two are side by side, that'll tell you the trig ratio, which is tan is opposite over adjacent. Again, hypotenuse they didn't give me, they didn't ask me for it, so I don't care about it. So again, tan is opposite over adjacent. I sub in the two values for opposite and adjacent. And then I take the tan over and do tan inverse. So grab your calculator, go shift tan, open bracket, type this divided by this, close bracket, and you get your answer of 43 degrees, hopefully. Now we have to go and find our last angle. You got two options here. You know they add up to 180, all the interior angles, so you can do 180 minus your 90 degrees minus the 43 that we just did. Or you can erase your labeling here, so erase the opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. Erase the circling of G and go and circle E and start from scratch again. Me personally, as long as I'm pretty confident that I haven't made a mistake, I will go and do the 180 minus. So let's do that. And you end up getting 47 degrees. Now on these questions where they ask you for multiple answers, it's always nice to just put a quick little underline, the two answers. That makes it easier for the person who's going to mark, because then they can see where your solution ends and begins. So I can see that this is one part, this is the end of the first part, this is the second part, this is the end of the second part. And that's it. So let's see what's on the next slide. So this is the work that we'll be doing tomorrow. Just a thing to remember, and I said this, I believe, at the beginning of the lesson, they will say find angle A, find angle C, whatever they ask you to find angle-wise, that's the angle you circle, and you will never be circling the 90-degree angle. It's always going to be one of the other two angles, so just keep that in mind. So we'll probably chat a bit about this at the beginning of class tomorrow. We might do an example together to make sure we're all on the same page. And then again, the bonus of this is you get to work in class on your homework and get help from the teacher who's going to be there the whole time. Have a good night, guys.